colleague and friend Minister, President, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be here today with you at this very important session, which demonstrates how committed the Greek government is to broadband as a policy flagship. And I fully share this goal, because broadband is critical if we want to boost the competitiveness and the growth of Europe and of its member states. As we have already heard today, the penetration of broadband lines is increasing fast in Greece. In January 2007, there were 4.4 active broadband lines per 100 citizens. I have heard that this number has dramatically gone up. However, even if it goes up, it is far away from the European average of 17% and is even further away from our best players, around 30%. Despite the significant increase in recent months and government initiatives such as the Year of Broadband, Greece is still trailing in last position in the recently enlarged Europe of 27 member states. And not only that, it's also a question of speed, because the speed of those broadband connections here in Greece is very below what many other European consumers are used to. Second, let's look at the coverage of broadband lines. Here, Greece is again at the last position. Only 19% of Greek citizens could subscribe, if they would like so, to broadband, compared to nearly 90% across Europe as a whole. Now, I do recognize the topography of Greece, which doesn't help. All those beautiful islands, these beautiful remote mountains, but at present, the broadband availability is not only a dream in the mountains and in the villages, it is even a dream for the citizens living in suburban and rural areas. Now, sometimes I am asked by the Greek citizens, why? To bother? Why is broadband important? Why should we care? What is it that I claim that Greece needs broadband and that it needs it now? So let us look what Greece is missing out because it lacks broadband. There is growing evidence that broadband boosts economic growth. An MIT study published last year showed that broadband boosts the employment by almost 1.5% per year. As well, there are significant increases in the setting up of new firms, mostly in the field of knowledge economy. The Scottish executive has recently estimated that Scotland's private sector will grow by 10 billion euro up to 2015 due to broadband uptake. And a recent OECD study shows that firms that adopt e-business techniques using broadband can raise productivity by up to 31%. Now, the lessons are very clear. Broadband makes good economic sense for the business community, and the more intensively you use the more the productivity gains you will make. That is one, but only one reason why Greece needs broadband and why it needs it now. Speaking about public services, some say Greek citizens simply are not interested in fast internet access. Well, especially as citizens, Greeks should be interested, and they should be calling on their government to set the lead, because broadband means better, more efficient, more effective services for citizens. Citizens who can be online instead of standing in line. And the fact that Greece has a special, wonderful geography of mountains and islands makes this even more important. Let me give you the example of healthcare. Broadband means bringing the best standards of care to the remotest locations. It can offer life-saving clinical applications, such as remote surgery, remote diagnostics. Imagine you have a heart complaint and you are away on your island retreat. Can you afford to wait until you are back in the city if you feel chest pains coming up? Perhaps the local doctor will be able to help, but will he have access to your history of electrocardiogram to see if you have suffered a new attack? Will he know or have access to all your treatment records? Suppose there is something wrong and you need treatment in a local hospital. Would you not feel better if your cardio specialist could sit on the intervention online? Now, this might seem an exceptional case, but it is not. Clinical e-health application mean faster and more accurate treatments, reduced cost from referrals. Remote treatment means access to top specialists, local treatment of minor surgeries and effective treatment of trauma, where time delays and risks are extremely important. Remote monitoring means that people can go home earlier after treatment, or it allows people to stay in their communities even if they have a delicate medical condition. And this is very important for our elderly society, and you know that we are aging in our societies. Remote consultation means patients don't have always to travel long distances to see specialists. Training and diagnosis support can increase certainty for doctors and patients. Electronic health systems can reduce errors in prescriptions, improve the coordination of multidisciplinary care needs, avoid expenses and necessary duplicate tests, get results to doctors more quickly, facilitate electronic prescription at the pharmacist, and reduce risk of mistreatment. Remember, there are more people dying in Europe each year by medical errors than there are killed in traffic accidents. And we can avoid that by new technology. Well, the list could go on. And I hope you are by now convinced of the potential benefits. And in this context, I would like to applaud the ΕΕΤΤ in Crete as an example of how health networks can be put into practice. But there are many factors that hold us back. Administrative factors, budgets, uncertainty about how to handle reimbursement for treatment. Technical factors, especially the lack of interoperability of systems. Human factors, especially resistance to change from healthcare professionals, from administrations. The latest survey data from the Observatory on the Greek Information Society indicates that still around 1/2 of the doctors are only on internet. Only 1/4 keep patient records electronically, and only 1/3 of general practitioners are online, broadband online. On the other hand, 83% of doctors that have taken up ICT say it adds considerably value to their work. Now, why those delays? What is a problem? Our studies show that unless doctors, nurses, and pharmacists have systems that give them the information they need instantly, they will not use e-health services. If they do not have access to fast, always-on communication, they will not take up those life-saving, budget-reducing, care-enhancing services. And that is why you need to go beyond the stage of pilot programs. Greece needs a fully operational knowledge web for healthcare, based on a developed broadband for healthcare, based on a developed broadband network. Greek doctors and patients need this broadband web, and they need it now. The e-health story is quite evident. We can add to this the e-government services. It is not enough that the main offices are wired up to the internet. If we want the benefits of low-cost and efficient services, the access to e-government must be available to every citizen, including the less well-off, the less able, and those living in remote areas. All our citizens and companies should be able to access government information and services at any time, anywhere. And this is another reason why Greeks need broadband connections available to all. Let me give you another example: emergency services. Public safety and emergency services are under increasing pressure from population aging, hypermobility, rising crime and other security concerns, terrorist attacks, but also environmental challenges. And this is a very critical area where high-speed communication counts. Yet, the technical architecture of most existing emergency access systems were designed more than 20 years ago. The communication systems are very often out of date, often based on analog equipment, and they are fragmented into a patchwork of different subsystems, often not communicating the one with each other. And there is no harmonized radio spectrum for emergency communication purposes of the EU. And interoperability systems are very, very heavy indeed. This means lower efficiency, slower emergency responses, especially in large-scale cross-border disasters when international coordination is required. Now, the key to emergency responses is swift, accurate, timely information. Authorities and field teams must know what has happened, who is responding and how, and what are the next moves that should be done. Complex emergencies require access to and sharing of large amounts of information between public authorities and operating teams, as well as a rapid access to specific expertise. We have to remove technical barriers to access information and services, but that is not all. We also need affordable and secure high bandwidth communication, both fixed and mobile, terrestrial and by satellite. When a major disaster occurs, the required information, be it medical records, details of dangerous substances or maps and pictures, must first be made available and then distributed. Yet today, our first on-scene response teams only have access to drip-by-drip narrowband communication. Is this good enough when broadband for all is within grasp? Should we accept the existence of a digital divide in the safety of the Europeans? No. Greece's safety services need broadband access, and they need it now. Now, what can we do to make things move? I believe that policy actions can make the difference. The Greek digital strategy has set concrete targets: population coverage to reach 90% of population by 2008, cover 60% of the land surface. These targets are backed up by substantial budget commitments: 210 million until 2013, 50% of which is coming from the European Community budget, and of which 160 million will be put into new local access infrastructure and 50 million for demand stimulation. 2 weeks ago in Brussels, we had a big conference on bridging the broadband gap, and the Greek Broadband Action Plan was presented with its aim to implement metropolitan area networks in 75 municipalities, wireless broadband in 120 towns and communities, 770 wireless hotspots, and the use of broadband satellite. All this is supported by fiscal incentives for broadband rollout and services. Now, Greece has taken a commitment to arrive to the EU average over the next 2 years. Those are very substantial ambitions. And, Friend Minister, I applaud the government's aims and actions. But there are some further policy steps that are crucial to make sure that Greece not only catches up, but that it moves itself to the forefront of the broadband innovation. Remember, while you are speaking here to catch up from the latest place to a little higher, all the others are moving also. The headline penetration rates that we cite today are based on a very basic concept of broadband, anything around 144 kilobit per second. But broadband services today need not just to be always on, but capable of 2 megabits to support basic Web 2.0 and IPTV type services. Now, in rural areas in Europe as a whole, the most common speed is 512 kilobit per second, as compared to the 144 kilobit per second you are speaking about now. And I tell you that before 2010, that is very quickly, the minimal accepted speed in Europe is going to be around 20 megabits in both directions. And this will be driven by demands for full-length video services, high-definition images, interactive environments. People will not accept latency, that is to say services that are slow to response. So Greece not only needs broadband today, it needs also a dynamic competitive environment to deliver tomorrow's broadband. Government subsidies can trigger the evolution, but they cannot deliver a long-term solution. This, ladies and gentlemen, needs market-led response. And that is why it is so important that Greece has a regulatory approach that stimulates innovation, competition, investment on a sustainable basis. All our experiences confirm that countries which apply the regulatory framework correctly and effectively are leading the broadband take-up. I therefore welcome the Greek market progress as a result of the transposition of the regulatory framework, Mr. President. The 80% price reductions in broadband services and the 600,000 new broadband lines that have been installed, the 250% increase in unbundled local loops since the beginning of the year are a good step in the right direction. It is good progress, but the high rate of progress is not astonishing. I mean, if you start very low in the beginning, the progress is very quick. And it is not necessary to remind that Greece is still significantly behind. So the pressure, ladies and gentlemen, the pressure has to be kept up to achieve the target parity by 2009. I am happy to see further initiatives from the Greek regulators. A very fast analysis and imposition of remedies on 17 markets, publications of the reference unbundling offer, information campaigns such as a week of broadband to raise public awareness of broadband, and a proactive approach to the licensing of wireless broadband. I know there have been complaints about the rush of work, but if you start late, you have to be quick in order to catch up. And in the Greek marketplace, I am very supportive of the work of Mr. Alexandridis and his team. However, I am still worried that the Council of State has not made one single decision since 2001. One of the leading questions unresolved in Greece is how to streamline, how to modernize these procedures for the high-tech economy. We are speaking about delays of years and years Do you know how quick one internet year is? One internet year is 3 months. Huh? And here you have not taken decisions since 2001. You have to fall back. So, and these delays and doubts create also the legal uncertainty which your business community does not need. Business community does not need. So you have to speed up, and you have to find solutions how you can avoid these legal delays in the court. That is what you have to do. What will I do? As we look to the future, in the coming months, I will propose a reform of the electronic communications framework. One of the changes I am looking at is to give to the regulators a mandatory power to impose functional separation of incumbents. That is to say, to force a separation within the incumbent of the network access division from the service divisions. For alternative network operators and regulators, this measure is attractive when there are continuing difficulties in establishing non-discrimination. For incumbents, we have seen that such a move can offer legal certainty, which is crucial to the long-term establishing of non-discrimination and for the long-term investments that are now needed to move to the next generation networks. However, due to its intrusive nature, this should only be an exceptional remedy. And its possible negative effects on the emergence of infrastructural competition have to be analyzed before this is implemented. But given the almost non-existing level of infrastructural competition on the local loop in Greece, I will be watching with interest to see how well the regulators' remedies to achieve non-discrimination are working. Ladies and gentlemen, let me end by talking about a key aspect of broadband for all in the context of a country with a difficult but magnificent geography like Greece has. Wireless broadband will be a key component for overcoming the digital divide in remote and rural settlements. There we need a policy framework for spectrum that unleashes this potential. Colleague Minister, we are going to work together on spectrum, because wireless is the future, especially for your Greek islands. And the Commission's spectrum policy aims to make spectrum usage flexible and market-driven. Today, the process for allocating spectrum is slow, bureaucratic, rigid, attaching technology and service constraints to spectrum usage rights. In the reform, which I'm going to put on the table, I will propose a change of approach. Let's make flexibility the default, not command and control. I am already working with the Member States to open up the 2.6 GHz band for innovative fixed wireless access applications, such as WiMAX in addition to 3G. But if we want significant wireless broadband speed at a low price, we will need more frequency in spectrum ranges that have high propagation characteristics. In short, policymakers need to look at the digital dividend created by the switchover from analog to digital TV very closely to see if they can carve out space for wireless broadband in the UHF space. We have to think how we can use this once-in-a-generation opportunity. This will happen now, and it will not come back after 20 years. So we must get the solutions now. How to utilize this once-in-a-generation opportunity to make the best out of these valuable spectrum bands. Even a relatively small part of this spectrum range could provide the basis for bridging the digital divide in rural areas, as well as providing the basis for an alternative infrastructure competition in both rural and urban communities. And that would mean more competition, more services, more choice. And this would have to be done, of course, on the basis of public interest. I do not believe that high-stakes auctions in which only those with the deepest pocket can take part would be effective. We need to encourage investment and competition, and we need cheap, wideband services for all. We are in the 21st century, ladies and gentlemen, and broadband is not optional. It is a rail track of the information revolution. Regions and nations that have embraced broadband are showing better growth than those that have not. And those that will not will see their economies fall behind. Greece, with its talented population, can only benefit from a strong system that wires together its brain power. And that is why I applaud your efforts, those of the government, those of the regulator, efforts to move things forward. These efforts are paying off, but, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a sprint. It is a marathon with one specificity, a marathon which is being run at sprint speeds. I know that this is tough, but Greece badly needs to keep going to catch up in that race. And I repeat my sentence, Greece needs broadband, and it needs it now. Now, how I am going to proceed in the next coming months in order to help you going more quickly on this, as I told you already, I am in the reshuffling of the whole telecom package. I'm in the final stage of this work on concrete proposals for a new regulatory framework for Europe's telecom sector. This summer, my services will work intensely on a detailed impact assessment to ensure that our proposal will strengthen competition growth and consumer benefits in Europe's telecom markets. In October, I will publish legislative proposals. These proposals have two main pillars. First, to ensure competition in the telecom markets, particularly in the broadband market, and strengthening and making available radio spectrum for wireless broadband services. Secondly, to complete Europe's internal market for telecoms, because we have to get rid of our small, scattered, non-competitive markets. Now, telecoms is clearly a domain where we need more Europe, not less Europe. And in many EU countries, I see that national telecom regulators are prevented from doing the best possible job, either because they are not sufficiently independent or because they lack the resources and the instruments. And here Europe can help. In many cases, I see that cooperation among national regulators is not sufficiently developed to deal, for instance, with cross-border implication of remedies. And here is where Europe has to come in, as we just did with the mobile roaming charges. I know that many here in Greece favor the idea of a single European telecom regulators. Ladies and gentlemen, the roaming story should have shown you that we have already a European telecom regulator. It's the European Commission, which is truly independent and supranational European institutions. And if we really believe in an internal market for telco companies and users, The reform of the EU telecom rules will thus have to strengthen the oversight of the European Commission over the national telecom markets. In addition to this, we are currently working on how to improve the work of the national regulators and how to combine their work in a new European logic. The current framework of loose cooperation among national regulators is clearly insufficient for the challenges of the digital age. In this respect, we will have in our work over the next weeks to carefully balance the need for federal solutions where necessary and decentralization where possible. Ladies and gentlemen, the details of my proposals will be made public in October, and I sincerely hope that these proposals will also help Greece to become a stronger performer in Europe's telecom markets. Thank you very much.